Come and hold my hand. I wanna contact the living. Not sure I understand this road I've been given. I sit and talk to God, and He just laughs at my plans. My head speaks a language I don't understand. I just wanna feel real love, feel the home that I live in.
En ciertos momentos quisiera ser un poco irresponsable. En ciertos momentos de mi vida quisiera tomar el carro y correr igual que los muchachos y hacer locuras. Pero me doy cuenta que si soy así, que si tengo la capacidad de ayudar y que si tengo la seguridad y la seriedad que está en mi vida, es porque la vida quiso que yo fuera así.
1998. At a safe house somewhere in Colombia, we meet Juan, a 16-year-old boy who openly speaks out for peace in one of the most violent countries in the world.
Pues es algo como, o sea, me nace del corazón cuando, o sea, no puedo ver que estén haciendo violencia y yo quedarme con los brazos cruzados. Pero que precisamente nuestro país está así lleno de violencia porque la gente se queda cruzada de brazos.
Together with other children, he made an appeal to the fighting parties to finally break out of the spiral of violence in the country. Juan grew up in a relatively wealthy family. His father was a dentist. Juan was an outsider even as a child, always on the stage, and later always busy with his guitar.
Yo me comencé a vincular con la guitarra y comenzamos a ver lo bonito de cómo, o sea, desafiar a la violencia. Aunque es peligroso, es bonito. Porque uno le puede mostrar a las personas que con una guitarra se puede convencer a la gente, ¿sí? Es lindo eso, que tú llegas a un lugar y la gente sale a las calles a mirar el grupo de música, cómo tocaba y todo, y ellos se animaban. Vamos a votar, le damos mensaje.
His mother was a reserved woman who always stood behind her son despite the events that followed.
Y yo le he dicho a él que se retire de eso. Yo le he dicho, Juan Elías, retírese de esos procesos. ¿Para qué tiene que andar en eso? Y me dice, no mami, porque todos no nos podemos esconder. Tiene que haber alguien que diga algo.
Juan was aware of the risks he was taking. The consequences soon made themselves felt. Next to his bed, we saw the small shrine he made for his father. His father's watch had stopped at the time of his death when he was murdered by paramilitaries.
Yo sé que es peligroso trabajar aquí en Colombia por la paz porque he visto cómo se mueren varios compañeros. Hace poco mataron a una compañera en Valledupar que trabajaba por la paz, porque el que vende las armas está haciendo su negocio. El que está haciendo, o sea, toda la guerra es un negocio. No es tanto como un conflicto, sino como un negocio que lo tienen. Entonces, en cambio, la paz no es negocio, porque tú con la paz nunca vas a hacer dinero.
2 years later, Juan traveled throughout the world, mainly on invitation by UNICEF. His group was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. He was received at the United Nations and met Queen Noor of Jordan, among other celebrities.
You are setting a new road, you are pioneering a new way for a coming together of young people and us old people to work together.
On this occasion, he was also being filmed by CNN. The American news channel made an extensive documentary about him. This contact would lead to a sudden turn in his life later, something that Juan could never have imagined at the time. Juan kept on traveling. We lost contact. When we tried to find him in Colombia a few months ago, he seemed to have vanished. East LA, a succession of ghettos in which a few million black and Hispanic Americans are forced to live side by side. Gang warfare claims victims every day.
This area right here has been known for like ambushing police officers, like them guys standing right there. That's dangerous right there. They gonna jack them. What? You get ready to jack them right quick. That's why the windows are down right now, because like this housing development, I can think of like 17 times when police officers have been ambushed. So like if the windows are not open, then you can't really hear like stuff that's going around you. Or like if you have to engage a suspect or whatever, then it's best for the windows to be down, because then if you have to shoot out, then you'll shoot into the window, and then that's a hazard too. They know how violent stuff can get sometimes.
The local police are resigned, almost casual in the way they talk about extreme violence. It's reminiscent of the daily violence in Colombia.
Bones sinking like stones, all that we fall for. Homes, places we've grown.
And oh, the irony. This is where we find Juan. He lives on the edge of a Hispanic ghetto. We see him near the school where he has his English classes. Juan had to flee Colombia with his mother and his brother.
Pues desafortunadamente soy un refugiado político, ya porque estoy en otro país, en contra de mi voluntad, quiere decir que soy un refugiado político.
He came to America with very little except the guitar that started everything off, still without strings.
Muy difícil. ¿Por qué? Pues empezando porque pues no hablo el mismo idioma que hablan ellos, que hablan aquí los americanos. Entonces pues hay que empezar a hacer la vida de nuevo. Cuando uno llega acá, uno empieza a hacer la vida de nuevo, uno empieza de cero.
Juan doesn't talk about what happened. He and his brother would rather tinker with an old car they were given.
You know, old car, big problems.
Using all sorts of old parts, they cobble up the jalopy.
Dale. Power.
Juan and his family have been to hell and back. The last few years in Colombia they spent moving from one safe house to another, always on the run for the paramilitaries trying to kill Juan. But in the end they couldn't go on. Juan's father was murdered and all the Uribes wanted was to get away. That's when the CNN crew came to Colombia. Lydia Smith made a documentary about Juan.
He was literally chased by the killers one time, and they would get numerous phone calls where they'd leave messages and they'd leave funeral music, or it was pretty bad. And they moved, I think it was 8 times in 3 years. And they moved towns, they moved apartments, and the killers just kept catching up with them.
Hunted down in a country where violence is normal, the boy made a last-ditch attempt with the American TV reporter he happened to see.
He was with his mom and asked me to help him get out of Colombia. And I was completely overwhelmed. I mean, you know, I'm just a citizen. I don't really have any power to speak of. And so they said, you know, can you help us get out of the country? And of course I had to say yes. I mean, what else do you say when someone's saying, my life is threatened, can you help me? And I remember I went back to my hotel room and I cried because I was like, okay, I've just said yes. I have no idea how I'm going to do it. I mean, I'm sure you've experienced this as well as a filmmaker. You go into these countries, you ask them to bare their souls, they do everything for the film, and then you're like, see, I'm going back to my nice country while you're being shot at. I couldn't do it.
For another nerve-wracking 18 months, a number of things were tried. Eventually, Lydia managed to get the family to Los Angeles via Mexico.
Todo está bien.
Then the next problem came up. How does one survive in East LA with no money? It's a dog-eat-dog world, and many youngsters end up like this. Juan knew one thing. He had to get a job. He found one at a mail-order firm. No one knew his background there. None of his colleagues are aware that the new kid was once nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. He checks hundreds of client registration forms every day.
Show me the right way to go. The spies came out of the water. You're feeling so bad.
Juan Elias, to me, he has such a desire to help people and such a desire to help the world. But at the same time, I think he almost kind of blocks off his own pain and hasn't really been dealing with his own pain. I mean, to be forced out of your country, to go from being upper middle class to being the lowest of the low. I mean, they came here with nothing. They still have land in Colombia, but it's not worth anything because of the war. And I mean, it's just what they've been through is monumental. And I think it's Juan Elias kind of just keeps it at bay.
His father's death, for example, is not something you can discuss with him. And that goes for all his experiences of violence. Colombia suddenly seems very far away. Juan and his relatives have other things to worry about here. Juan works for the mail-order firm, his brother is a waiter, and their mother is a cleaning lady.
Claro, y el trabajo es diferente. Aquí me ha tocado hacer cosas que en mi país nunca las hubiese hecho.
Juan takes his mum to work. It's in Beverly Hills, of all places.
Pero si uno acepta lo que está pasando y termina uno cediendo un poco para no seguir uno en el mismo trauma y empieza uno como una forma de autoestimulación, una forma de autoestimularse y una forma de autocontrolarse para poder sobrevivir en medio de las circunstancias de guerra. Nunca uno se termina de acostumbrar, pero sí uno aprende como que a cada día pensar en cosas diferentes para poder continuar viviendo sin temor a lo que le pueda pasar a uno en el futuro.
The conclusion is obvious. Juan wants to concentrate on trying to lead a normal life. Buy a car, get a girlfriend, maybe have children sometime. Deep down inside, this boy yearns for a normal life.
En ciertos momentos quisiera ser un poco irresponsable. En ciertos momentos de mi vida quisiera tomar el carro y correr igual que los muchachos y hacer locuras. Pero me doy cuenta que si soy así, que si tengo la capacidad de ayudar y que si tengo la seguridad y la seriedad que está en mi vida, es porque la vida quiso que yo fuera así.
A normal life, just like other young people. Break some speed limits, sing some songs. Juan's tapes with Colombian music make way for American radio stations.
I can see myself coming.
I just wanna feel real love within us, nothing of
Having been through, for Juan Elias, the death, the murder of his father, and then I think it's everybody's worst nightmares of, like, you know, hearing a noise and going, oh, is somebody out there? They lived with that for 3 years, of like somebody around the corner is trying to kill them, and it was real. I mean, to me, that's like, you know, you need therapy for 40 years for just that. And then being forced to flee your country, you know, and then come to the land of opportunity, supposedly, but really where it's tough to get ahead, to get a decent job and to make enough money and keep going to school. And so my sense is that Juan Elias still, you know, is just, I think if he kind of opened the doors to his pain, maybe he's scared that it's too big.
Mi ideal es seguir ayudando a mi gente allá. Pienso terminar mi carrera como abogado o como defensor de los derechos humanos y mejorando el sistema constitucional, digamos así, para que pongan más leyes para combatir a las personas que hacen la guerra.
Not sure I understand. Not sure I understand. Not sure I understand.